Hello, my name is Sue Brinkman, and I'm the Director of New Age Research here at Women of Grace. The question of whether or not Christians should buy into the designer Labubu doll craze due to rumors of its demonic origin has been circulating on the internet for months now. Some say it's inspired by the Mesopotamian demon Pazuzu and therefore demonic in origin, but the creator claims the idea for the dolls comes from Nordic mythology. So who's right? For those who have never heard of the dolls, they were created by a Hong Kong-based artist known as Casing Lung. The otherworldly little creatures are part of his The Monsters series and are produced in collaboration with a Chinese collectible toy company named Popmart, which is best known for his blind box marketing strategy, which means you never really know what Labubu doll you're going to get until you open the box. Now, it's described as looking very childlike, but has these wild eyes and pointed ears and an eerie grin with sharp teeth. And some say it resembles the figures of Pazuzu, an ancient demon, and he's known as the king of the demons of the wind, who was associated with famine, with plague, with storms, with like nasty stuff. And this particular demon is best known as the demonic entity that possessed Regan in The Exorcist, if you remember that. Now, to further fuel the flames of controversy on social media were reports from people who bought the dolls and reported demonic manifestations. For example, some claim that their Labubus moved around the house on their own. Others claim to be suddenly struggling with insomnia since they got the doll. People report sudden emotional shifts after displaying the toy. Others say they feel drained or irritable or anxious. Others have physical symptoms like insomnia or headaches or the feeling of being watched. There's even a Facebook video of the popular podcasting exorcist Father Carlos Martins, who appears to be warning against the doll in a Facebook post. Although he admits in the beginning of the video that he's not familiar with the dolls, he goes on to say that if the word demon, is associated with the doll, he then says, why would you want to give your child a doll, the demon, even if it's cute? As a Christian parent, there are many other things you can get your child rather than a doll that celebrates a demon. So the issue then is whether or not Labubu dolls are modeled after the demon Pazuzu. Now, Snopes weighed in on the question earlier this summer, and they reached out to Lung for comment on it, and he hasn't done so yet. But Snopes says, however, based on available evidence and interviews given by Lung, it seemed that while characters in folklore had a direct influence on the monsters, Pazuzu was likely not one of them. Now, in an interview with China Global Television Network Europe, Lung explains that he moved from Hong Kong to the Netherlands when he was 7 years old, and he was given storybooks to help him learn the Dutch language quickly. And during that time, he read a lot of fairy tales from Northern Europe and Scandinavia, and he spent a lot of time reading the library to improve his Dutch. And after my studies, he said, I was preparing to become an artist. I always thought about my childhood, what I've read, and what I've always loved. So I've always come up with something related to the fairy tales and what I loved so much when I was a kid. Now, Rebecca King, PhD, who earned her degrees from Oxford and Cambridge, and whose thesis explored representations of magic and occult knowledge in modern drama, doesn't see much of a connection between Labubu or Pazuzu. As Dr. King points out, Pazuzu usually leers with his mouth open. Labubu dolls have closed mouths. Pazuzu has a long tail. Most of the Labubus don't have tails at all. Pazuzu statues often have a threateningly raised right hand. She said, I've never seen one of the dolls doing this. Pazuzu is a wind spirit and is depicted with wings. Labubus don't have wings. He is always male. Most of the dolls are canonically female. Pazuzu doesn't have rabbit ears and doesn't come in pastel colors, she said. I can go on and on. However, the good news is that even if the dolls are based on Pazuzu, that doesn't mean the dolls are possessed, because objects can't be possessed by demons. They can only be influenced by demons via the presence of a curse. But even this is considered very rare. Father Gabriel Morth writes in his book, An Exorcist, More Stories, the infestation of an object is very rare. He recommends that a person proceed with great prudence before claiming that something is infested. One of the ways to determine if an object has been cursed is to examine whether or not it was used in some kind of occult activity, such as ritualistic magic. And as Father Morth writes, if a magician gives us something, it is probably infested. And note, the infestation does not mean that the devil is in the object. It simply means that the object was exposed to some kind of an evil rite, generally with the intent to harm someone in particular. So whether or not Labubu dolls have any ties to demonic remains an open question. But if the doll makes you uncomfortable, sacrifice the satisfaction of jumping on the Labubu trend train and don't buy it. Better safe than sorry. For more information, visit womenofgrace.com.